She married a homeless man, unaware he's a billionaire CEO after her quadruplet pregnancy. The moment Olivia saw her husband's face splashed across the business magazine, her world stopped spinning. The glossy pages trembled in her hands as she stood in the hospital hallway, just steps away from her 4 tiny infants fighting for their lives in the NICU. "This is you," she whispered, holding up the magazine when James walked toward her with 2 cups of coffee. "Nathan Harris, tech billionaire who vanished 3 years ago. The same Nathan who sleeps beside me every night. The same man who's been fixing our neighbor's electronics for cash. The father of our 4 premature babies." James froze, coffee cups nearly slipping from his grasp. His eyes, the same kind eyes she'd fallen in love with, now filled with a complex mix of fear and relief. "Liv, I can explain," he started, his voice dropping to that gentle tone he always used when calming her fears. "Explain?" Olivia's voice cracked. "I'm standing outside a NICU where our babies, our miracle quadruplets, are fighting for their lives, because we couldn't afford specialized prenatal care. Except we could, couldn't we? Because you're worth billions. Have you ever discovered the person you love isn't who they claim to be? The person you built your entire life around has been living a lie?" A nurse approached, clipboard in hand. "Mrs. Carter, we need your signature for—" She paused, noticing Olivia's ashen face. "Are you all right?" Olivia couldn't respond. Mrs. Carter. Even her name was built on deception. She clutched the wall for support, the magazine slipping from her grasp and landing open on the floor, James's face, no, Nathan Harris's face, staring up at them both. The nurse glanced down, then back at Olivia, recognition dawning in her eyes. "Is that my husband?" Olivia whispered, her voice barely audible over the hospital's steady hum of machines. "The father of my babies? Would you forgive someone who hid their entire identity even if they did it for love?" 6 hours earlier, Olivia had been holding James's hand as they watched their 4 miracle children breathe through tubes, each one weighing less than 2 pounds. He'd kissed her forehead and promised they would make it through this together. He'd wiped her tears and told her he would do anything for their family. Now she understood what anything might entail. This is where our story begins, not at the start of their love, but at the moment it faced its greatest test. A nurse who fell in love with a homeless man, only to discover he was one of the wealthiest people in the country, right when they needed a miracle most. 3 years earlier, rain lashed against the windows of Millie's diner, turning the evening streets of Cedar Grove into streaming rivers. The neon open sign buzzed with inconsistent light, casting red glows across puddles forming in the cracked parking lot. Cedar Grove wasn't a place tourists visited, just a dot on the map between larger Midwestern cities where everyone knew each other's business and life moved at its own measured pace. Inside the diner, Olivia Matthews wiped down a table while balancing a textbook in her free hand. At 32, she was older than most nursing students, but life hadn't offered her a direct path. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and lines of fatigue framed her kind eyes. "You're studying again?" Millie, the 60-year-old owner, slid a plate of fries across the counter. "Eat something. You're getting too thin." Olivia smiled. "Final exams next week. I can't afford to fail." "You've never failed anything in your life," Millie said, her voice softening with maternal pride. 4 years of night classes while working full shifts at the clinic. "You're something else." Olivia tucked the book away and accepted the food. "Thanks, Millie. I'd be lost without you." "Lost? Huh. You're the one who keeps finding all the strays." Millie nodded toward the window. "Like that one." Through the rain-streaked glass, Olivia noticed a figure huddled beneath the narrow awning of the closed hardware store across the street. The man sat with his back against the brick wall, a small backpack clutched to his chest, seemingly resigned to the downpour. "He's been there since this morning," Millie continued. "Sheriff drove by twice, but didn't stop." Olivia watched as the man adjusted a tattered jacket over his shoulders. Something about his posture, straight back despite his circumstances, caught her attention. "Is he new in town?" she asked. "Never seen him before." Millie shrugged. "But they come through sometimes. The bus stops here on the way to Kansas City." Olivia's gaze lingered on the stranger. The rain had intensified, and even from across the street, she could see him shivering. Without conscious thought, she began packing the untouched fries into a takeout container, and added a cheeseburger from the warm ing tray. "Olivia Matthews," Millie sighed, though her tone held no real disapproval. Your heart's going to get you in trouble someday. It's just food, Millie, Olivia replied, adding a coffee to go. It's freezing out there. Put it on my tab, Millie said with a wave of her hand. And be careful. The bell chimed as Olivia pushed open the diner door, immediately feeling the cold rain against her face. She darted across the empty street, coffee in one hand, food bag in the other. As she approached, the man looked up, his eyes startlingly alert despite his bedraggled appearance. Hi there, Olivia said, suddenly feeling awkward. I thought you might be hungry. He hesitated before responding, and in that moment, Olivia noticed details that seemed incongruous. His beard was unkempt but recently trimmed at the edges. His clothes were worn but clean. His hands, though calloused, had the long fingers of someone who worked with precision. Thank you, he finally said, his voice carrying an unexpected warmth and clarity. That's very kind. Olivia held out the offerings. It's just diner food, but it's hot. When he reached for the coffee, their fingers brushed, and Olivia noticed a faint line on his ring finger where a wedding band might once have been. I'm Olivia, she offered, stepping back slightly. James, he replied. Then, after a pause, James Carter. He took a sip of coffee, closing his eyes briefly at the warmth. This weather caught me off guard. Are you passing through? Olivia asked, rain dripping from her jacket hood. James's gaze drifted down the empty main street before returning to her. I'm not sure yet. Something about his measured response suggested layers of unspoken history. Olivia had worked at the free clinic long enough to recognize when someone was running from something, or someone. Well, there's a shelter in Madison, about 20 miles east, she said. But they're usually full when it rains like this. James nodded. I'll figure something out. A car drove past, splashing water onto the sidewalk. Olivia stepped back, but not quickly enough. Water soaked through her jeans from the knees down. She laughed despite herself. Perfect end to a perfect day. James looked genuinely concerned. You should get inside. Yeah, she turned to go, then stopped. The thought forming in her mind was impulsive, perhaps foolish, but the rain was coming down harder, and the temperature was dropping with the night. She'd seen enough cases of hypothermia at the clinic to know the angers. I have a garage apartment, she said abruptly. It's small, just one room with a bathroom. I use it for storage mostly, but there's a bed. You could stay there, just until the storm passes. Surprise crossed James's face. You don't know me. I know you're soaking wet and it's 39 degrees, Olivia replied. And I know there's nowhere else around here to stay tonight. He studied her face. Why would you offer that to a stranger? The question wasn't defensive but genuinely curious, as if her kindness was something he couldn't quite comprehend. Because someone did the same for me once, she answered honestly. When I needed it. A complex emotion flickered across James's features. Recognition perhaps of a shared understanding of life's unexpected turns. I don't want to impose, he said. It's not imposing if I'm offering. Olivia pointed down the street. I'm about 6 blocks that way. Blue house with white trim. The apartment is around back. You can have tonight, no strings attached. Tomorrow you can decide what's next. He seemed to weigh invisible options before nodding. Thank you, Olivia. I appreciate it more than I can say. As Olivia walked back to the diner to collect her things, she wondered about the man's story. There was something in his eyes, a depth of experience that didn't match his current circumstances. She'd met homeless people before, had treated many at the clinic, but James seemed different. His speech was educated, his manners refined despite his situation. An hour later, she showed him to the apartment. It was dusty but clean. A twin bed against one wall, a small table with chairs, a kitchenette with minimal appliances, and a bathroom with a shower. It's not much, she apologized, switching on the heater. It's perfect, James said, standing awkwardly by the door. I can't thank you enough. There are clean towels in the bathroom. The refrigerator works but it's empty. I'll bring some groceries tomorrow. She set a spare key on the table. Lock up behind me. As she turned to leave, James called after her. Olivia, why nursing? The question caught her off guard. How did you know I was a nurse? Your textbook at the diner, he said. Advanced pharmacology. Plus, you're wearing sensible shoes with scrub pants under your jeans. Olivia blinked, surprised by his observation skills. I work at the free clinic. I'm finishing my RN degree. He nodded as if confirming something to himself. You seem like someone who finds fulfillment in helping others. I try, she said simply. As Olivia walked through the rain to her back door, she realized James had deflected her question with his own. It was the first of many small mysteries that surrounded him. That night, before falling asleep, she heard faint tapping sounds from the garage, rhythmic and measured like fingers on a keyboard. When she mentioned it the next morning, James merely smiled and said he'd been fixing a broken watch he'd found months ago. But there had been no watch on his wrist at the diner, and the technical language he used to describe its mechanical problem seemed at odds with a man who carried all his possessions in a single backpack. In that moment, as morning sun broke through the clouds and lit up her small kitchen, Olivia sensed she'd invited more than just a homeless stranger into her life. She'd opened the door to a mystery, one with eyes that held secrets and hands that seemed made for creating rather than surviving. Little did she know that both their lives had just changed forever. What was meant to be a one-night shelter from the storm stretched into 3 days, then a week, then 2. Olivia hadn't planned on having a tenant, but James's presence proved surprisingly unobtrusive. He kept the apartment spotless and insisted on doing OD&D jobs around her property, fixing the leaky kitchen faucet that had dripped for months, repairing the loose boards on her back steps, clearing the gutters before the next rainfall. "You don't have to earn your keep," Olivia told him one evening as they shared dinner on her back porch. The spring air carried a sweet floral scent from her modest garden. "I know," James replied, his beard now neatly trimmed, his hair clean but still too long. "But I want to contribute." Olivia studied him as he ate. In the 2 weeks since she'd found him outside the diner, subtle changes had emerged. His shoulders no longer hunched defensively. The dark circles beneath his eyes had faded. He'd gained a healthy amount of weight, though his frame remained lean. "Have you thought about what's next?" she asked cautiously. They hadn't discussed his past or future plans, maintaining an unspoken boundary that felt safer for them both. James set down his fork. "I've been looking for work in town. Mr. Henderson at the hardware store offered me some hours." "That's great," Olivia said, genuinely pleased. "Perry Henderson is good people." "He is." James hesitated. "But I turned him down." "Oh." Olivia tried to mask her surprise. "Jobs were scarce in Cedar Grove. I thought I might help at Clark's Electronics instead." A small smile tugged at his lips. "I have some experience in that field." The way he said it, with quiet confidence but notable restraint, piqued Olivia's curiosity. It was the first concrete hint about his previous life. "What kind of experience?" "I used to build computers and write software." His eyes fixed on something distant beyond her small backyard. "A lifetime ago." Before Olivia could probe further, her phone buzzed with an emergency alert from the clinic. One of her regular patients, an elderly man with congestive heart failure, had been admitted. "I need to go," she said, already rising. "Mr. Abernathy's in trouble again." "Take my portion for lunch tomorrow," James said, helping her gather her things. "And drive carefully. Your left headlight is flickering. I can fix it this weekend." It was this strange mix of thoughtfulness and competence that continued to surprise her. A man who claimed to have lost everything somehow retained so much knowledge, so many skills. That night at the clinic, as she monitored Mr. Abernathy's vitals, Olivia found herself wondering what series of events had led James to that rain-soaked sidewalk. Was it bad luck? Poor choices? Something worse? "You're distracted tonight," observed Dr. Eleanor Wright, the clinic's director and Olivia's mentor. "That's not like you." "Sorry," Olivia said, updating the patient chart. "Just tired." Eleanor's eyes, sharp despite her 70 years, studied Olivia carefully. "It wouldn't have anything to do with the mysterious handyman staying in your garage? The one everyone in town is talking about?" Olivia groaned. Small towns, Eleanor agreed with a nod. "Just be careful, dear. You have a wonderful heart, but not everyone deserves access to it." The doctor's concern rekindled memories Olivia had worked hard to suppress. 5 years earlier, she'd opened her heart and home to Michael, a charming pharmaceutical rep who'd swept through town with promises of love and commitment. 8 months later, he'd disappeared with her savings and left her with a mountain of debt. The experience had nearly broken her. "I'm just helping him get back on his feet," Olivia assured her mentor. "It's not like that." But as weeks turned to months, something shifted between them. Their dinners grew longer, their conversations deeper. James began sharing small stories from his past, never revealing too much, but enough for Olivia to glimpse the man beneath the mystery. He told her about growing up in Seattle with parents who emphasized education above all else, about attending college on a full scholarship, about his fascination with coding and digital security. I could see patterns others missed, he explained one night as they sat on her porch swing, watching fireflies illuminate the June darkness. In code, in systems, it was like everyone else was reading individual notes while I could hear the entire symphony. That's a gift, Olivia replied. What did you do with it? A shadow crossed his face. I built something important. Then I lost it. He wouldn't elaborate further, changing the subject to ask about her day at the clinic. This became their pattern, moments of revelation followed by careful retreat. Meanwhile, James had indeed started working at Clark's Electronics. Within a month, word spread through Cedar Grove about the new repair wizard who could fix anything with a circuit board. People brought in decade-old computers, fried TVs, malfunctioning phones. James restored them all, often improving their functionality beyond their original capacity. My ancient laptop hasn't run this fast since I bought it, Olivia marveled one evening as James returned it to her. He'd offered to take a look when she'd mentioned it was slowing down. I rewrote some of the background processes and upgraded your security, he said casually. You had some pretty questionable programs running. I don't even know what that means, she laughed. But, thank you. Their eyes met over the glow of the screen and for a moment, neither spoke. Something electric passed between them, recognition perhaps of how comfortable they'd become with each other. James broke the silence first. I should probably look for my own place soon. There's no rush, Olivia said quickly, then felt heat rise to her cheeks. I mean, unless you want to go. I don't, he admitted quietly. That night marked a turning point. They began sharing more than meals. They shared stories, dreams, even fears. Olivia told him about Michael's betrayal and the years she'd spent rebuilding her life and credit. James listened with such intensity that she felt truly heard, perhaps for the first time. He didn't deserve you, James said simply when she finished. Maybe not, she conceded. But the experience taught me something important. What's that? That some falls are necessary. Her smile held no bitterness. I wouldn't be finishing my nursing degree now if I'd stayed with Michael. His leaving forced me to build something better. James's expression changed, a look of profound respect and something deeper flickering in his eyes. You're remarkable, Olivia Matthews. In turn, James shared more about his own downfall, though always in careful, measured terms. He spoke of a business partnership gone wrong, a betrayal by someone he'd considered a brother, a legal battle that had stripped him of everything. I could have fought harder, he admitted, his voice low. But something in me just wanted to walk away. Start over where nobody knew me or what I'd lost. Is that why you ended up in Cedar Grove? Starting over? I didn't plan to stay, he confessed. I was just passing through. And now? A small smile. Now I have reasons to stay. Have you ever seen potential in someone when others couldn't? Do you believe people deserve second chances? Like this video, if you've ever had faith in someone, when nobody else would. Summer faded into autumn. James continued working at Clark's Electronics, quickly becoming indispensable. The owner, a man in his 70s with failing eyesight, increasingly relied on James to run the shop. Customers specifically asked for him, impressed by his ability to diagnose and resolve issues others deemed hopeless. One rainy October afternoon, Olivia stopped by the shop during her lunch break, bringing sandwiches from Millie's. She found James hunched over a circuit board, magnifying glasses perched on his nose, soldering iron in hand. The concentration on his face was intense, almost transcendent. Lunch delivery, she announced, setting down the bag. James looked up, his expression transforming instantly from focused professional to warm friend. Perfect timing. I'm starving. As they ate in the back room of the shop, Olivia noticed diagrams spread across the workbench, complex designs that looked nothing like simple repair work. What's all this? She asked. James hesitated. Just a side project. Mr. Clark lets me use the equipment after hours. Olivia picked up one of the papers, a detailed schematic covered in notations. Though she couldn't understand the technical aspects, she recognized the level of sophistication. This doesn't look like something for the shop, she observed. It's not. James carefully took the paper from her hand. It's something I've been working on for a while. A security protocol that might help prevent identity theft. That seems important, Olivia said. Will you sell it? A complex emotion flickered across his face. I'm not sure yet. It's complicated. That evening, as Olivia studied for her final nursing exams, her phone lit up with a text from James. "Check your laptop. I installed something new." Opening her computer, she found a small icon she didn't recognize. Clicking it revealed a simple message: "For everything you've done. This program will protect your digital identity forever. No one will ever be able to take advantage of you again." The thoughtfulness of the gesture, so perfectly aligned with her past pain, brought tears to her eyes. In that moment, Olivia realized she was falling for this mysterious man with gentle hands and guarded eyes. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. What she couldn't see was James alone in the garage apartment, staring at his own screen. On it glowed a news article about Quantum Shield, the company he'd abandoned 3 years ago, now being investigated for security breaches. His former partner, Jacob Westfield, was quoted defending their protocols James had designed and knew were vulnerable. James closed the laptop, conflict etched across his features. The life he'd built in Cedar Grove, this simple existence with a woman whose kindness had saved him, stood in stark contrast to the high-stakes world he'd left behind. But how long could he hide his true identity? And what would Olivia think if she knew the full truth? As autumn leaves drifted past his window, James made a decision. He would tell her everything, soon. But not yet. Not until he was certain she could see the man he'd become rather than the man he'd been. Winter descended on Cedar Grove with unexpected force that year. December brought record snowfall, transforming the small town into a postcard-perfect landscape of white-capped roofs and ice-glazed trees. For Olivia and James, the cold weather created a cocoon of intimacy. Evenings spent beside her fireplace, weekends cooking together in her warm kitchen, and long conversations that stretched until midnight. The first kiss happened on a Tuesday. Olivia had just passed her final nursing exam, officially completing her RN certification after years of night classes and double shifts. She burst into Clark's Electronics, waving her results. "I did it," she announced, breathless from running through the snow. "I passed with honors." James looked up from the computer he was repairing, his face lighting up. "Of course you did. You're brilliant." Without thinking, she threw her arms around him. When they pulled apart, something shifted in the air between them. James's hand gently brushed a snowflake from her hair, his fingers lingering against her cheek. "Olivia," he said softly, her name sounding like a question. She answered by closing the distance between them, her lips finding his with a certainty that surprised them both. The kiss was gentle at first, then deepened with months of unspoken longing. "I've wanted to do that since July," James admitted when they finally parted. "What took you so long?" Olivia asked, her eyes sparkling. His expression grew serious. "I wasn't sure I deserved you." The town took notice immediately. At Millie's diner the next morning, Olivia endured knowing smiles and gentle teasing from the breakfast regulars. "About time," Millie declared, sliding extra bacon onto Olivia's plate. "That man's been looking at you like you hung the moon since he got here." Dr. Eleanor was more cautious. "Are you certain about this?" she asked during their shift at the clinic. "You still know very little about his past." "I know who he is now," Olivia replied. "That's what matters." But late at night, when James slept beside her, Olivia sometimes wondered about the gaps in his story. The careful way he avoided certain topics, the nightmares that occasionally woke him, the phone calls he took outside where she couldn't hear. She loved the man who fixed her neighbor's electronics and remembered how she took her coffee and looked at her with undisguised adoration. Yet she sensed there was more, a history he kept locked away. For James, falling in love with Olivia felt like both redemption and deception. Every moment of happiness came paired with guilt over his continued silence. He'd built his new life on partial truths, and with each passing day, revealing everything became more daunting. "You seem troubled," Olivia observed one evening as they walked through town, Christmas lights reflecting off the snow around them. "Just thinking about the future," he said. "Having second thoughts?" A flicker of vulnerability crossed her face. "God, no." He stopped walking, turning to face her. "Olivia, meeting you was the best thing that ever happened to me. Before you, I was just existing, going through motions. You made me alive again." His raw honesty moved her. Standing there beneath the glow of Main Street's holiday decorations, Olivia made a decision of her own. "I don't need to know everything about your past," she told him. "We all have chapters we'd rather not read aloud. I just need to know you're here now, completely." Relief and love washed over his features. "I am. With everything I have left, The proposal came on New Year's Eve, not with an expensive ring or grand gesture, but with quiet certainty. They sat on her back porch despite the cold, bundled in blankets, watching stars emerge above the snow-covered yard. "I never thought I'd find home in a person," James said, his breath visible in the winter air. "But that's what you are to me, Olivia. Home." He produced a simple band of polished wood. "I made this from the maple branch that fell during the October storm. I know it's not much." "It's perfect," she interrupted, tears forming despite her smile. "Absolutely perfect." They married in April, when the first wildflowers pushed through the softening earth. The ceremony took place in Olivia's backyard, the same space where they'd shared countless meals and conversations and gradual revelations of self. Only 20 guests attended. Clinic colleagues, Millie and her husband, Mr. Clark with his magnifying glasses perched atop his head, and a few neighbors who'd come to embrace James as one of their own. Dr. Eleanor officiated, having been ordained years earlier for her niece's wedding. Her eyes were sharp but kind as she looked between them. "Love that forms quickly isn't necessarily less profound than love that develops over decades," she told the gathered friends. "Some souls simply recognize each other, even when they meet under unusual circumstances." Her gaze lingered on James, who stood tall in a new suit purchased with his savings from the electronics shop. He'd trimmed his beard and cut his hair but purposely maintained the humble appearance of the man Olivia had fallen for, not the tech executive he'd once been. "Olivia chose to see potential where others might have walked past," Eleanor continued. "And James chose to become worthy of that vision. There's profound wisdom in both choices." Their vows were handwritten, heartfelt, and carefully composed to honor the truth without revealing everything. James promised to protect her, to support her dreams, to be honest in all ways that mattered. Olivia vowed to trust his journey, to provide safe harbor, to love the man he was becoming rather than whoever he might have been before. As they exchanged rings, her wooden band matched with a simple gold one. For him, James fought the urge to confess everything right there. The moment deserved complete truth, but looking into Olivia's joyful eyes, surrounded by people who'd accepted him without question, he couldn't risk shattering the life they'd built. Soon, he promised himself, after they'd settled. The reception lasted well into evening, with string lights illuminating the yard and Millie's famous peach cobbler served alongside the wedding cake. Residents who hadn't been invited stopped by with well wishes and small gifts, turning the intimate gathering into a community celebration. "Cedar Grove has officially adopted you," Olivia whispered to James as they danced beneath the stars. "How does it feel to belong somewhere?" His arms tightened around her. "Like everything I never knew I needed." Later, after guests departed and they were alone in the house that was now truly theirs together, James held Olivia with a fierce tenderness that spoke of both protection and fear. "I want you to know," he said against her hair, "that no matter what happens, everything between us is real." "The most real thing in my life?" She leaned back to study his face. "That sounds ominous." "No, not ominous." His smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "Just important." Spring bloomed into full summer. Newly married, they settled into domestic rhythms that felt both novel and familiar. James continued his work at the electronics shop increasingly, taking over management as Mr. Clark's health declined. Olivia thrived in her new role as a certified RN at the clinic, her natural compassion enhanced by professional confidence. They transformed the garage apartment into a workshop where James could tinker with his projects, sophisticated security programs that he claimed were just hobby work, but that Olivia suspected held deeper significance. Sometimes she'd find him there late at night, lines of code reflecting in his glasses, his expression harkening back to the focused intensity she'd glimpsed in those early days at Clark's. On their 3-month anniversary, they drove to the lake outside town for a picnic. As sunset painted the water gold, Olivia rested her head on James's shoulder. "Any regrets?" she asked. "About settling for small-town life with a small-town nurse?" His laugh held no humor. "Settling? Olivia, I've had wealth. I've had recognition. None of it compared to this. To you." She shifted to face him. "You've never really told me about that time in your life. Would it change how you feel about me?" Fear laced his question. "No," she answered honestly, "but I'd like to know the whole person I married." James nodded slowly. "You deserve that, and I promise I'm going to tell you everything. I just need a little more time to—" He trailed off, unable to articulate the complex web of fears that kept him silent. Olivia kissed him softly. I'm not going anywhere. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the water. Neither could have predicted how soon that promise would be tested, or how completely their quiet life was about to transform. Would you marry someone if you felt they were holding back significant parts of their history? Hit the like button if you believe that who someone is today matters more than their past. Comment below with your thoughts. The symptoms began in late July, subtle at first, then impossible to ignore. Fatigue that dragged at Olivia's limbs during her clinic shifts. Nausea that arrived without warning, sending her rushing to the bathroom between patient consultations. A strange sensitivity to smells that made Millie's once beloved coffee suddenly seem repulsive. You're pregnant, Dr. Eleanor stated matter-of-factly when Olivia mentioned her symptoms during a quiet moment at the clinic. Olivia shook her head. We've been careful. Careful isn't foolproof, Eleanor replied, handing her a test from the supply cabinet. Take this home. Let's settle the question. That evening, Olivia sat on the bathroom floor, staring at the 2 pink lines with a mixture of disbelief and wonder. She and James had discussed children as a distant possibility, something for later, after they'd saved more money and settled more deeply into marriage. Yet here was evidence of life already growing inside her, rewriting their careful plans. When James returned from the electronics shop, he found Olivia at the kitchen table, the positive test placed beside a plate of untouched dinner. Is that, he began, his voice trailing off as understanding dawned. I'm pregnant, Olivia confirmed, watching his face closely. For one breathless moment, James stood frozen. Then a smile broke across his features. Radiant, uncomplicated joy that erased the perpetual worry lines around his eyes. A baby, he whispered, kneeling beside her chair. His hand reached toward her still flat stomach, hesitating. Our baby? Olivia covered his hand with hers, guiding it to rest against her. Are you happy about this? It's sooner than we planned. Happy doesn't begin to cover it. His voice caught. Olivia, I never thought I'd have this. A family, a future, a chance to be a father. The raw emotion in his words revealed glimpses of the losses he rarely discussed. They scheduled an appointment with Dr. Landry, the only obstetrician in Cedar Grove. Given Olivia's age, 33 now, and her occasional high blood pressure readings, Dr. Eleanor had recommended early prenatal care. The ultrasound room was small but warm, with faded posters of fetal development decorating the walls. Olivia lay on the examination table, James's hand clutched tightly in hers as a technician applied cold gel to her abdomen. Let's see what we've got here, the technician murmured, moving the wand across Olivia's stomach. Her professional expression suddenly shifted, eyes widening slightly. What? Olivia asked, alarm rising in her chest. Is something wrong? No, nothing's wrong, the technician said slowly. But I'm going to get Dr. Landry. The minutes waiting felt eternal. James maintained a calm exterior, but Olivia felt his hand trembling slightly in hers. Dr. Landry entered with a measured smile that professionals reserve for unexpected news. She took the ultrasound wand herself, studying the screen with intense concentration. Well, she finally said, turning the monitor toward them. Congratulations are in order. Multiple times over. Olivia squinted at the grainy image. What do you mean? You're carrying multiples, Dr. Landry explained, pointing to distinct shapes on the screen. 1, 2, 3, and, yes, 4 separate embryos. Quadruplets. The room seemed to tilt around Olivia. 4? That's impossible. We don't have multiples in our family. Spontaneous quadruplets are extremely rare, Dr. Landry acknowledged. But they do occur, especially with certain fertility factors that can increase with age. James had gone completely still, his face drained of color. 4 babies, he repeated, voice hollow with shock. This significantly changes your pregnancy plan, Dr. Landry continued, her tone shifting to clinical concern. Multiple pregnancies carry higher risks: premature birth, low birth weight, gestational diabetes, preeclampsia. You'll need specialized care, possibly at the University Hospital in Kansas City. The drive home passed in stunned silence. 4 babies. The number seemed impossible, astronomical. Their modest 2-bedroom house suddenly felt absurdly small, their careful savings laughably inadequate. That night they sat on the porch swing, the summer air heavy with unspoken fears. We can do this, Olivia finally said, breaking the silence. People manage with twins all the time. This is twice twins, James pointed out, his voice tight. And those people probably have more resources than we do. The reference to money hung between them. On his electronics shop salary and her nurse's income, they lived comfortably but modestly in Cedar Grove. 4 infants would require more of everything: more space, more supplies, more medical care. I never expected this challenge, Olivia admitted. But I can't help feeling it's also a miracle. 4 little lives, James. Part you, part me. Something shifted in his expression, resolve replacing shock. I'll make sure you all have everything you need, he said with sudden intensity, whatever it takes. The promise carried weight beyond simple determination. It sounded like someone accustomed to moving mountains. As August melted into September, Olivia's body transformed with startling speed. By 12 weeks, she looked 6 months pregnant, her petite frame struggling to accommodate 4 growing babies. Dr. Landry referred her to a high-risk pregnancy specialist in Kansas City, requiring bi-weekly drives to the city. Quadruplet pregnancies rarely go full term, the specialist explained during their first consultation. We'll aim for 32 weeks if possible. Earlier delivery is likely, so we need to prepare for premature infants. Each appointment brought new concerns: borderline blood pressure readings, early signs of gestational diabetes, worries about cervical length. Olivia took a leave of absence from the clinic when standing for hours became impossible. Her world narrowed to keeping herself and her babies healthy. Meanwhile, James's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He'd disappear for hours without explanation, returning distracted and evasive when questioned. Late at night, Olivia would wake to find his side of the bed empty, the glow of his laptop visible from his workshop. Phone calls took him outdoors, his voice too low to hear through windows. Is everything okay at the shop? Olivia asked one evening as James rushed through dinner, clearly preoccupied. Fine, he replied too quickly. Mr. Clark is considering retirement, that's all. Lots of details to work through. But his explanation didn't account for the unfamiliar numbers that appeared on his call log, or the hushed conversations that abruptly ended when she entered a room. Pregnancy hormones amplified her anxiety, sending her imagination down dark paths. Was he having second thoughts about their expanding family? Had the reality of quadruplets overwhelmed him? One night in her 5th month, severe cramps woke Olivia from sleep. Finding James absent again, she called Dr. Eleanor, who insisted on driving her to the emergency room. Where's your husband? Eleanor asked, as they waited for the doctor. Working late, Olivia lied, fighting back tears. The monitors showed 4 strong heartbeats, but contractions threatened the pregnancy. When James finally arrived at the hospital, panic etched across his face. Olivia felt simultaneous relief and resentment. Where were you? She asked, as he took her hand. Taking care of something important, he answered, kissing her forehead. I'm so sorry I wasn't home. The doctor prescribed strict bed rest and medication to stop the contractions. As they prepared to leave, James stepped out to make arrangements, returning 30 minutes later with news that startled Olivia. I've hired a home health aide, he said. She'll be with you during the day while I'm working, and I've arranged for grocery delivery, housekeeping, everything you need. We can't afford all that, Olivia protested. Don't worry about the money, James said firmly. I've been saving, and Mr. Clark gave me a raise. The explanation seemed plausible, yet something in his delivery felt rehearsed. When they arrived home, Olivia noticed new medical equipment had been delivered. A hospital-grade bed, monitoring devices, even an oxygen machine just in case. The shop must be doing really well, she remarked, eyeing the expensive equipment. James avoided her gaze. I want the best for you and our babies. As her pregnancy progressed, the gap between their modest income and their expanding resources grew more noticeable. New furniture appeared. Medical bills mysteriously took care of themselves. A wheelchair-accessible ramp materialized on their porch overnight. Meanwhile, James's absences increased. He claimed to be working extra hours, setting up a nursery for 4, preparing their home for the baby's arrival. Yet when he returned, anxiety radiated from him, a man keeping secrets that threatened to burst forth. At 26 weeks, during an ultrasound revealing 2 girls and 2 boys, Olivia made a decision. Whatever James was hiding, whatever storm approached, they would face it together for the sake of the 4 tiny hearts beating inside her. By her 28th week, Olivia's world had shrunk to the confines of their small house. Bed rest limited her to brief supervised walks between bedroom and living room. The home health aide, a competent, cheerful woman named Marlene, maintained a constant presence, monitoring vital signs and administering medications to prevent preterm labor. How did you find someone with NICU experience? Olivia asked James one evening as Marlene left after her shift. Just lucky, James replied, arranging pillows behind Olivia's back. Mr. Clark knows someone who knows someone. The explanation might have satisfied her before, but now it joined a growing list of inconsistencies that kept Olivia awake at night. The specialized medical equipment, the disappearing hospital bills, Marlene's professional credentials that seemed excessive for a small-town home health aide. Then came the laptop incident. James had left for the electronics shop earlier than usual, forgetting his personal laptop on the kitchen counter, the one he never let out of his sight, the one he closed whenever she entered his workshop. Olivia stared at it for nearly an hour, moral debate raging within her. Trust versus truth. Privacy versus partnership. When she finally opened it, password protection blocked her access. 3 failed attempts using combinations of their anniversary and birthdays confirmed her suspicions. Whatever James guarded required serious security, but the laptop had opened to his email briefly before locking, long enough for Olivia to glimpse a message header, Quantum Shield Legal Settlement, Urgent. The name tickled something in her memory. She reached for her phone, conducting a search while guilt and curiosity battled in her conscience. The results loaded slowly on Cedar Grove's limited network, but eventually revealed tech industry articles from 3 years earlier. Quantum Shield founder Nathan Harris missing after partnership dispute. Tech billionaire vanishes amid security breach allegations. Where is Nathan Harris? Industry giant's disappearance raises questions. Attached to each article was a photograph, a younger, clean-shaven, professionally dressed version of her husband addressing a technology conference. The same jawline, the same intense eyes, but a completely different life. Shock rendered her motionless. James wasn't just some failed tech worker who'd lost everything. He was Nathan Harris, founder of a major security firm, industry pioneer, and according to these articles, a billionaire who'd mysteriously disappeared 3 years ago. Her hand moved instinctively to her swollen belly as one of the babies kicked forcefully. What did this mean for them? For their children? Why maintain this elaborate deception for so long? When James returned that evening, Olivia had composed herself enough to attempt a careful approach. I was thinking about setting up college funds for the babies, she began casually over dinner. 4 college educations will be expensive. James nodded, distracted by his phone. Good idea. We can start putting something aside each month. Or, Olivia continued, watching him closely, we could just use some of your Quantum Shield money. His fork clattered against the plate. The color drained from his face as his eyes met hers, shock giving way to resignation. How did you? It doesn't matter, Olivia interrupted, her voice surprisingly steady despite her racing heart. What matters is that you've been lying to me since the day we met. You're not just some down-on-his-luck tech worker, are you? You're Nathan Harris. The name hung between them like a physical entity. James closed his eyes briefly, shoulders slumping. Olivia, I can explain. A sharp pain cut through her abdomen, stealing her breath. Another followed immediately, more intense than anything she'd felt before. Olivia gasped, clutching her stomach. Something's wrong, she managed before another contraction gripped her. James's expression transformed from guilt to terror. You're only 30 weeks, he said, already reaching for his phone. It's too early. What followed was a blur of frantic activity. James calling 911. Marlene appearing seemingly out of nowhere, checking Olivia's vitals with professional precision. The ambulance's arrival, its lights painting their quiet street in pulses of red. BP dropping, contractions 3 minutes apart, the paramedic reported as they loaded her stretcher. The babies, Olivia whispered, fear overwhelming even her anger at James's deception. They're too small. Cedar Grove Hospital isn't equipped for quadruplets this premature, the paramedic explained. We're taking you to University Medical Center in Kansas City. James climbed into the ambulance beside her, his face ashen. I'll be right here, he promised, gripping her hand. Everything's going to be okay. The 70-mile journey became a nightmare of pain and fear. Monitors beeped warnings as contractions intensified. Medical terminology flew between paramedics and the hospital staff communicating over radio. Patient is 33-year-old female, gravida 1, para 0, 30 weeks gestation with quadruplets. Experiencing preterm labor with signs of placental abruption. Through waves of pain, Olivia registered James making calls, his voice taking on an authoritative tone she'd never heard before. This is Nathan Harris. I need Dr. Melissa Chen. Yes. That Nathan Harris. Tell her it's about Olivia. Quadruplets, 30 weeks, possible abruption. We're 20 minutes out. The name-dropping worked. When they arrived at University Medical Center, a team of specialists waited at the emergency entrance. Among them stood a distinguished Asian American woman, who addressed James with familiar concern. Nathan, when you disappeared, never mind. Let's focus on your wife and babies. The next hours passed in fractured moments of clarity amid pain and medication. Olivia remembered signing consent forms, James's constant presence beside her bed, the growing urgency in the doctor's voices as one baby's heart rate dropped dangerously low. We need to perform an emergency C-section, Dr. Chen explained. All 4 babies are showing signs of distress. The operating room blazed with harsh light. Olivia, partially numbed by spinal anesthesia, remained conscious but detached, as if watching events unfold from a distance. James, gowned and masked, sat by her head, his eyes revealing terror he tried to hide. Olivia, he whispered. There's something you should know in case. First baby coming, the surgeon announced, interrupting whatever confession James planned to make. A tiny, impossibly small cry filled the room, weak but determined. Olivia heard a medical team count off vitals and measurements. Baby A, female, 2 pounds, 3 ounces. 3 more extractions followed in quick succession, each accompanied by the controlled chaos of medical professionals assessing, measuring, and intervening. Baby B, male, 2 pounds, 1 ounce. Baby C, female, 1 pound, 14 ounces. Baby D, male, 1 pound, 12 ounces. Each baby, whisked immediately to warming stations, received emergency interventions. Their cries, when they managed them, sounded like mewing kittens, barely audible above the medical equipment. They're all breathing, James reported to Olivia, his voice breaking. They're fighters, like their mother. Before Olivia could see her children, complications arose. Blood pressure alarms screamed warnings as she began hemorrhaging. The anesthesiologist increased medication, voices grew more urgent, and darkness claimed her consciousness. She woke hours later in recovery, James asleep in a chair beside her bed, his face marked by dried tears. When he sensed her stirring, his eyes flew open. The babies? Olivia asked immediately, her voice raspy. Alive, he answered, relief evident. Critical but stable. They're in the NICU. All 4 have respiratory issues, but the doctors say that's expected at 30 weeks. Baby C, the smaller girl, had a heart irregularity they're monitoring closely. When can I see them? Tomorrow, if you're stronger. You lost a lot of blood, Olivia. They almost lost you too. The fear in his voice was raw, genuine. Whatever secrets lay between them, his love for her and their children was undeniable. The following day, a nurse helped Olivia into a wheelchair. Her incision throbbed with each movement, but determination overrode pain. James walked beside her as they entered the NICU, a hushed, high-tech environment, where life and death engaged in minute-by-minute negotiation. Nothing prepared Olivia for the sight of her children. 4 clear incubators contained tiny beings who seemed more medical equipment than babies, each connected to ventilators, feeding tubes, and monitoring sensors. Their translucent skin revealed blue veins and fragile bones. Eyes fused shut. Fists smaller than Olivia's thumbs. They looked profoundly vulnerable yet fiercely alive. They need names, the NICU nurse gently suggested. Names give strength. Through tears, Olivia and James named their children. The firstborn girl became Emma, after Olivia's grandmother. The smaller girl they called Hope, a prayer disguised as a name. The larger boy they named James, after his father. And the smallest boy became Thomas, because he'll need to be stubborn, James explained, attempting a smile. Days blurred into a grueling routine. Olivia divided her time between recovering in her hospital room and sitting beside the incubators, reading to babies too small to hold. James rarely left the hospital, sleeping in chairs and speaking frequently with doctors in hushed, intense conversations. On the 5th day, baby Thomas developed a lung infection. His fragile system, already stressed, began shutting down despite aggressive treatment. Alarms blared as medical staff rushed to his incubator. We're losing him, a doctor stated grimly as medications failed to stabilize the infant. In that moment of pure crisis, something shifted in James. He stepped into the hall, making a call with the authority of someone accustomed to command. This is Harris. I need the experimental surfactant treatment we funded last year. Yes, compassionate use protocol. I don't care about regulatory hurdles. My son is dying, make it happen. Within hours, a helicopter delivered specialized medication directly to the hospital. By morning, Thomas's condition had stabilized, not out of danger, but back from the edge. Watching from her wheelchair as new medication flowed into her son's tiny body, Olivia finally confronted the reality she'd been avoiding since the ambulance ride. "You called in favors only a billionaire could command," she said quietly when they were alone. "You saved our son's life with connections I didn't know existed. How long were you planning to live this lie?" James knelt beside her wheelchair, exhaustion etched in every line of his face. "I never meant to deceive you. At first I was just hiding. Then I fell in love with you, with our life, and the right moment to tell you never seemed to come." "And now?" she prompted. "Now everything's changed," he admitted, looking toward their 4 fighting children. "I thought I could leave that world behind, but our babies need every advantage I can give them, the best medical care, the best chances. I can't keep pretending to be someone with limited resources when I have the means to save them." As they spoke, monitors beeped steadily, measuring 4 precarious lives balanced between existence and oblivion. Whatever reckoning awaited them about James's true identity would have to wait. Their children's survival demanded every ounce of strength they possessed. Have you ever faced a crisis that forced you to re-examine everything you thought you knew? Like this video if you've ever had to set aside your own feelings to focus on something more important. Comment below about a time when life's unexpected challenges revealed someone's true character, for better or worse. 10 days after the birth of the quadruplets, doctors stabilized all 4 babies enough for Olivia to be discharged. Though she couldn't bring her children home, she could at least recover in proper accommodations. James had arranged for a suite at a nearby hotel with a shuttle service to the hospital. "The nurses have our numbers," he assured her, as he helped her into a wheelchair for hospital discharge. "They'll call immediately if anything changes." Olivia nodded, her eyes hollow from exhaustion and worry. The emotional weight of 4 critically ill newborns had temporarily overshadowed her shock about James's true identity. But as they entered the hotel suite, a luxurious 2-bedroom accommodation, with a full kitchen and living area, reality came rushing back. "This isn't a place Mr. Clark's electronics repairman could afford," she remarked quietly, lowering herself carefully onto the sofa. James set down their bags. "No, it's not." The simple admission hung in the air between them. For months, she'd been married to a stranger, or at least to only a fraction of the man standing before her. "I think it's time for the whole truth," Olivia said. "Not just pieces, everything." James nodded, his expression grave. He moved to the window, looking out at the Kansas City skyline. In profile, wearing clothes that had been selected for hospital comfort rather than disguise, he suddenly looked different to her, more commanding, his posture straighter, his presence filling the room in a way she'd glimpsed only in fragments before. "My full name is Nathan James Harris," he began. "I founded Quantum Shield with my college roommate Jacob Westfield 12 years ago. We developed encryption protocols that became the industry standard for data security." He turned to face her. "The company grew faster than we ever imagined. Within 5 years, we were valued at over $10 billion. I became wealthy beyond anything I could have dreamed as a scholarship kid from Seattle. And then you decided to pretend to be homeless in Cedar Grove." Olivia couldn't keep the edge from her voice. Was it some kind of social experiment, slumming with the regular people? Pain flashed across his features. "No, Olivia. Nothing like that." He sat in the chair across from her, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. 3 years ago, Jacob and I disagreed about a new direction for the company. He wanted to license our security protocols to government agencies, including some with questionable human rights records. I refused. "The partnership dispute mentioned in the articles," Olivia noted. "Yes. But it was more than a dispute." James's expression darkened. "Jacob began excluding me from key meetings. Our board of directors started receiving anonymous reports questioning my mental stability. Financial discrepancies appeared in accounts only I controlled. He was setting you up. He was eliminating me. The security breach allegations were fabricated. Jacob needed me discredited so he could take control of the company and implement his vision." James's hands clenched. "I was facing not just loss of my company, but potential criminal charges for things I never did." Olivia processed this. "So you ran?" "I didn't just run, I vanished completely. Withdrew enough cash to live simply for years. Abandoned my properties, my accounts, my identity." His voice softened. "I was angry and betrayed. The company I built, my life's work, was being weaponized against me by someone I trusted completely. But why maintain the deception for so long? Why not fight back? You had resources. Jacob had prepared meticulously. Fighting meant years of legal battles while my reputation was destroyed. James's gaze met hers directly. But more importantly, something unexpected happened while I was hiding. What? I discovered freedom. A small, genuine smile touched his lips. For the first time since college, no one wanted anything from me. No board meetings, no investor calls, no visionary speeches. Just existence. Simple, anonymous living. He leaned back, running a hand through his hair. I wandered for months, taking odd jobs, keeping to myself. Then it rained in Cedar Grove, and a kind nurse bought me coffee. The reference to their first meeting sent a pang through Olivia's heart. So it was all calculated, making me feel sorry for you. No. His response came quickly, forcefully. That's the one thing I need you to believe, Olivia. Every feeling, every moment between us has been absolutely real. Except for the minor detail that you're actually a tech billionaire, she countered. Did you laugh about it? Poor, naive Olivia taking in a homeless man who could buy her entire town. Never. James moved to kneel beside the sofa, wincing as pain shot through his knee. A genuine reaction inconsistent with calculation. I planned to tell you the truth after our third date. Then again before I proposed. Then before the wedding. What stopped you? Fear. The admission seemed to cost him. Fear that you would see me differently. That you'd question every interaction we'd had. That you wouldn't believe my love was genuine. So you decided lying was better. Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. Did you think I was so shallow that money would change how I felt? No, but did you think so little of me? Her voice rose despite her surgical recovery. I loved you when I thought you had nothing. I married you believing we would struggle together. I carried our children thinking we'd need payment plans for hospital bills. The emotion building inside her crested. Do you have any idea how that feels? To discover your entire reality is built on fiction? That the man who shares your bed has been performing some elaborate charade? It wasn't a charade, James insisted, reaching for her hand. She pulled away. Then what was it? Cowardice, he admitted, his own eyes glistening. The longer I waited, the harder it became to tell you. I thought I could build a new life, a real life, separate from everything Nathan Harris had been. You aren't separate from who you were, Olivia pointed out. That history made you who you are. Those experiences shaped your abilities, your thinking. The man I fell in love with wouldn't exist without Nathan Harris's past. He nodded slowly, recognition dawning. You're right. And now, she continued, 4 tiny lives depend on both versions of you, the humble, hardworking man I married, and the influential billionaire with connections to experimental medical treatments. Silence fell between them as the magnitude of their situation settled around them. Their children, fighting for life in incubators across town, knew nothing of identities or deceptions. They needed parents united in purpose, not divided by secrets. I never spent a day of our relationship pretending to love you, James said quietly. When I fixed your neighbor's computers or repaired your steps or held you at night, that was all me. The real me. Which version is real? Olivia asked, genuine confusion replacing anger. The billionaire tech genius or the electronics repairman? Both. Neither. He sighed deeply. I don't know who I am anymore, Olivia. The only thing I'm certain of is that I love you and our children more than anything I've ever created or owned. Olivia studied his face, the face she'd woken up beside for nearly 2 years. The same eyes now filled with fear of losing her. The same hands that had held hers through labor. The same heart, apparently, regardless of his bank account. I need time, she finally said. I can't process everything at once. Our babies need us focused on them, not on this. I understand. He respected her space, not pushing for immediate forgiveness. Her phone rang, the specialized ringtone assigned to the NICU. Both froze as Olivia answered, her face paling as she listened. It's Emma, she whispered, hand trembling. Her oxygen levels are dropping. They need us back immediately. In that moment, as fear overshadowed everything else, one truth crystallized for Olivia. Whether he was James Carter or Nathan Harris, the man racing to gather their coats and call for the car was undeniably the father of her children. And right now, that was the only identity that mattered. The NICU's harsh fluorescent lighting cast stark shadows across Emma's incubator as doctors worked to stabilize her oxygen levels. Olivia and James stood motionless, hands pressed against the clear plastic separating them from their firstborn daughter, watching as a medical team inserted a new breathing tube. Pulmonary hemorrhage, the neonatologist explained after Emma's stats finally stabilized. It happens in extremely premature infants. We've started medication to help the bleeding resolve. Olivia nodded mechanically, her mind processing medical information while her heart ached to hold her child. Beside her, James maintained his composed exterior, though his knuckles had turned white from gripping the incubator's edge. When the crisis passed, they remained by Emma's side, watching the rhythmic rise and fall of her tiny chest. The other 3 babies slept nearby, each still fighting their own battles against prematurity's countless complications. I could have lost her, Olivia whispered. We could have lost her without ever having really held her. James's hand tentatively found hers. But we didn't. The simple contact, his warm palm against hers, broke something open inside Olivia. Tears she'd been containing for days streamed down her face. I'm still angry with you, she said, not pulling away. But I can't do this alone. You don't have to, he promised. I'm here. All of me. The phrase all of me hung between them, an acknowledgement of his fractured identity and an offer of complete honesty moving forward. In the days that followed, they established a new routine. Mornings and evenings at the NICU, afternoons at the hotel suite, where they began the painful work of rebuilding what deception had damaged. I need to know everything, Olivia insisted during their first real conversation. No more convenient omissions or partial truths. James nodded, pouring them both cups of tea before sitting across from her at the dining table. Where should I start? Your company. What's happening with it now? Quantum Shield operates under Jacob's direction, James explained, his tone carefully neutral. When I disappeared, he told the board I'd had a mental breakdown. After a year, he had me declared legally dead. Dead? Olivia's eyes widened. But your parents? My parents passed away years before. There was no one to contest it. He stared into his tea. The company has grown, but Jacob's compromised its founding principles. The security protocols I designed are now used by regimes I would never have worked with. Do you want it back? She asked bluntly. The question seemed to surprise him. I used to think about nothing else. Now? His gaze drifted toward the window in the direction of the hospital. Now, there are 4 reasons why my priorities have completely shifted. Olivia believed him. In the NICU, she'd witnessed his complete devotion to their children, the way he read medical research until dawn, questioned doctors with precise technical understanding, and spoke to each tiny baby with such tenderness it brought nurses to tears. What about the money? She asked, forcing herself to address the elephant in the room. Most of my personal assets were frozen when I disappeared, he explained. But before I left, I transferred significant funds to offshore accounts under different names, enough to last several lifetimes. So when you were fixing toasters at Clark's Electronics, I could have bought the entire chain of stores, he admitted with a rueful smile. But I enjoyed the work, using my hands solving tangible problems. It felt honest in a way coding never did. Over the following week, the conversations continued. Olivia asked about his childhood, his college years, his rise in the tech world, filling in the deliberate gaps he'd left in their earlier relationship. James answered everything completely, often volunteering information before she could ask. I wasn't always wealthy, he told her one evening. My mother cleaned houses, my father drove a delivery truck. The scholarship that got me to MIT changed everything. That's why your kindness that night meant so much. You saw a person worth helping, not someone to avoid. Olivia began to understand the complex layers of his deception, not just a lie, but a desperate search for authentic connection in a world where his name had become a commodity. When people knew me as Nathan Harris, they wanted my money, my influence, my name on their boards, he explained. No one wanted just me. Did you think I would be that way? The question had haunted her. No, he answered immediately. But I feared losing what we had, the simplicity, the realness. I was terrified that once you knew the truth, you'd see me differently. I do see you differently, Olivia admitted, but not how you think. I see someone who was so wounded by betrayal that he created an entirely new life rather than risk being hurt again. That's not just deception, James. That's trauma. Her insight, delivered without judgment, cracked open his carefully maintained composure. For perhaps the first time since his ordeal began, James truly broke down, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "I never meant to hurt you," he managed through tears. "I know," Olivia said softly. "But healing from this requires more than explanations. It requires rebuilding trust through actions." As their babies grew stronger, so did their commitment to honesty. James arranged for his lawyer to visit, updating legal documents to ensure Olivia and the children were protected regardless of what happened. He showed her financial statements, introduced her to former colleagues who could verify his story, and answered every question with patience and transparency. For her part, Olivia began the difficult work of integration, seeing her husband not as two separate men but as one complex person with a past both privileged and painful. She found herself studying him in quiet moments, recognizing familiar mannerisms now that she knew to look for them. The precise way he analyzed problems, the strategic thinking that had always seemed incongruous in a repair technician. 1 month after the quadruplet's birth, as they stood watching all 4 babies breathing more easily in their incubators, Olivia made a decision. "I want to try again," she said simply. "Try what?" James asked, confusion crossing his features. "Us? A real marriage based on complete truth." She turned to face him fully. "I fell in love with parts of you before. I think I could love all of you now." His expression transformed, hope breaking through like sunrise. "Even after everything?" "Because of everything," she corrected. "The man who sat in the rain and accepted my help with dignity. The man who fixed my neighbor's electronics with care and patience. The man who moved heaven and earth to save our children. Those men are all you, James, and I choose to love the whole complicated truth of who you are." She took his hand, interlacing their fingers. "But no more secrets. Not ever again. Not ever," he promised, the words carrying the weight of vow renewal. "I am exactly who you see now. Past, present, and future." As if responding to their reconciliation, tiny Thomas stretched in, his incubator, his movements stronger than they'd been since birth. A new chapter was beginning for all 6 members of their family, one built on the foundations of hard-won truth. 3 months after their premature birth, Emma, Hope, James, and Thomas were cleared to leave the hospital. Each still required oxygen support and round-the-clock monitoring, but they had overcome the most dangerous hurdles of extreme prematurity. At 5 pounds each, still small but remarkably resilient, they were finally coming home. Not to Cedar Grove, however. James had purchased a spacious house near the Kansas City Medical Center, converting the entire first floor into a sophisticated nursery with medical-grade air filtration, monitoring systems, and space for the rotating staff of nurses he'd hired. "It's temporary," he explained as he guided Olivia through the home for the first time. "Just until they're stronger. Then we can decide where we want to raise them." Olivia nodded, taking in the thoughtful preparations. 4 identical cribs, arranged so the babies could see each other, comfortable rocking chairs positioned for simultaneous feedings, even a small apartment for Marlene, who'd agreed to stay on as their primary nurse. "It's perfect," she said, squeezing his hand. "Thank you for doing this." "I should have done more sooner," James replied. "If I'd been honest from the beginning." "We can't rewrite the past," Olivia interrupted gently. "Besides, I'm not sure we would have appreciated all this in the same way if it hadn't been preceded by simpler times." Her observation captured the strange gift their unconventional journey had given them, a genuine appreciation for both modest comforts and extraordinary privilege. Unlike many born to wealth, James valued every convenience his money provided. Unlike those who married into fortune, Olivia maintained her groundedness, viewing their resources as responsibility rather than entitlement. The quadruplet's homecoming day arrived with ceremonial weight. Hospital staff who'd cared for the babies lined the corridor, applauding, as each infant was wheeled out in special transport incubators. Dr. Chen herself accompanied them to the house, conducting a final check, before officially discharging her smallest patients into home care. "You've beaten remarkable odds," she told Olivia and James. 4 survivors from quadruplets born at 30 weeks is extraordinary. "We had extraordinary care," James replied, his gaze meeting the doctor's with shared understanding. After the medical team departed, Olivia and James stood in the quiet nursery, watching their children sleep. The moment felt sacred, a line crossed between continuous crisis and cautious hope. "We made it," Olivia whispered, leaning against James's shoulder. "They made it," he corrected, brushing a finger gently across James Jr.'s miniature palm. We just refuse to give up. As the babies stabilized, growing stronger each week, James gradually reintroduced himself to the world. He'd abandoned, not as the returning CEO seeking vengeance, but as a philanthropist with newfound purpose. Using funds from his offshore accounts, he established the Quadruple Blessing Foundation, dedicated to supporting families with multiple or premature births. The average NICU stay for a premature infant costs over $3,000 per day, he explained to Olivia as they reviewed the foundation's mission statement. Most families face financial ruin alongside the emotional trauma. We can change that. The foundation's first initiative funded an expansion of University Medical Center's neonatal intensive care unit, doubling its capacity and upgrading equipment. Its second provided housing near hospitals for families with premature infants, eliminating the crushing burden of hotel costs and long commutes during critical care periods. Olivia, once she'd adjusted to their new reality, found her own way to contribute. Drawing on her nursing background and personal experience, she created a support network connecting NICU parents with medical professionals, financial advisors, and mental health counselors. Technical support is essential, she told James as she finalized her program, but so is emotional support. Having someone say, "I've been where you are," makes an impossible situation bearable. Her initiative quickly expanded beyond Kansas City, with virtual support groups forming nationwide. Olivia led weekly sessions from their home, speaking with raw honesty about the terror, guilt, and exhaustion that accompanied premature births. Her medical knowledge combined with personal experience made her uniquely qualified to bridge the gap between clinical care and human emotion. "You're changing lives," James observed one evening after watching her counsel a young couple whose triplets had been born at 28 weeks. "We both are," she replied. In different ways. 6 months after the quadruplet's birth, as autumn painted Kansas City in gold and crimson, James received news that shifted their world once more. Jacob Westfield, his former partner, had been indicted for securities fraud and ethical violations related to Quantum Shield's government contracts. "The board wants me back," James told Olivia, holding the formal letter from Quantum Shield's directors. "They're offering to restore my position and ownership stake." "Is that what you want?" Olivia asked, watching him carefully. James considered the question, looking toward the nursery where their children now slept through most nights, oxygen tubes removed, their tiny bodies filling out with healthy growth. "I want my work back," he admitted. "The innovation, the problem-solving, but not at the cost of what we've built here." Together, they crafted a response. James would return as Chief Innovation Officer rather than CEO, working remotely 3 days a week and in-office 2. The arrangement would allow him to reclaim his professional identity while preserving his role as present, engaged father to 4 increasingly active infants. "Are you sure about this?" he asked Olivia the night before sending their counteroffer. "Going back means public attention. People will know who I am, who we are." "I fell in love with James Carter," she said thoughtfully. "I'm learning to love Nathan Harris. But the man I admire most is the one who's discovered how to be both successful without being defined by success, wealthy without being ruled by wealth." On the quadruplet's first birthday, an achievement that had once seemed impossible, they hosted a celebration at their home. The guest list reflected their unique journey: Dr. Chen and the NICU nurses, Millie and Mr. Clark from Cedar Grove, families they'd supported through their foundation, and James's newly reunited colleagues from Quantum Shield. As Olivia watched James holding hope while helping Emma take wobbly steps across the living room, she marveled at the distance they'd traveled. From a rain-soaked stranger to billionaire father of 4, his transformation wasn't about money or status, but about authenticity finally embraced. And for herself, the nurse who'd offered shelter on impulse, the journey had been equally profound. She discovered strength to face impossible odds, capacity to forgive profound deception, an ability to love the complex whole of someone, rather than just comfortable fragments. Their story, like their children, had defied expectations and emerged stronger through crisis. If this journey of love, deception, and ultimate truth has touched your heart, please hit subscribe to hear more stories that explore the complexity of human connection. Have you ever discovered unexpected depth in someone you thought you knew completely? Comment below with your experience. And if you found hope in Olivia and James's ability to rebuild trust after betrayal, share this video with someone who might need that message today.